Welcome everybody to the Mind, Body, and Soul TV, coming to you live from our Denver, Colorado studios. I'm your host, Coach Steve Toth, and we are, of course, streaming on YouTube Live, also on YouTube Red, and at consciousevolutionmedia.com. So welcome everybody. We have a fantastic show for you this evening. Our theme this evening is how to be a stunt woman, and let me present to you our first stunt woman of the history of our network, Conscious Evolution Media. Her name is Lisa Loving Dalton, and yes, she is a stunt woman. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Steve, so much for having me. I'm excited to be the first, and I hope I'm the last.
Well, hopefully you'll come back. Wow,
I would love that. Yeah.
This is going to be so much fun because not only are you the first stunt woman, but I never interviewed a stunt woman or a stunt man for that matter. But that's fine because I interviewed tons of people, thousands of people, and it really doesn't matter where you're from or what you do. So the first question is, of course, if I took away all these titles that you have, she's an author, actor, speaker, coach. If I take them all away, what's left? Lisa Loving Dalton. Who is really Lisa?
Well, Steve, I really am a simple, sometimes shy, dyslexic, clumsy person who does the best she can to make perfect whatever seems to be not quite ideal, and celebrate that.
Okay, great. So please tell us what happened to you so that you even had this thought that you wanted to be a stunt woman.
Well, I think it really does come out of those physical conditions of clumsiness that really led to me having frustration and fear, and being bullied for being, physically idiotic, and wanting to try to overcome that, survive that, and sort of make people eat their words a little bit.
I'll show you.
I'll show you. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And I had twin brothers who were 13 months older than I am. Mm-hmm. And we had a very fun neighborhood that played in the trees in the forest and played a lot of games, football and tag and hide and seek and things like that. And I felt that I should be, well, obviously they were going to be opposing captains, but I should be first pick on the football team in the neighborhood. And I should get to play even when they were playing baseball with all the boys. I insisted I at least get to be permanent catcher, which, no one ever wanted to be the catcher. So they let me do that. But I insisted that I didn't care whether girls were allowed in the tree fort. They couldn't keep me out because I could climb higher than they could. And so I just insisted that nothing was going to stop me, even if I fell, crashed, got knocked upside the head by a baseball bat, which did happen, accidentally when I stood up to catch a foul tip, and the batter didn't realize it and clocked me in the face. It didn't stop me. I just kept going until I actually got better at things, and parents put me into dance class while they could afford it, and helped me try to build some grace. And ultimately they called a family powwow and insisted that my two sisters and two brothers forbid each other and the neighborhood kids to call me anything but my name, Lisa, instead of calling me klutz and clumsy. And so they cheered me on. They supported me in whatever fantasies I had about being graceful and skillful. And eventually I did build up a very solid physical prowess.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So let me, I'm really curious. So were you very boyish when you were doing this, or were you still very, very feminine, or were you balanced out, or I'm just curious.
Growing up, I was an absolute tomboy. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And I have to say, even through my stunt career, I I aspired to Superman, not Superwoman or Wonder
Well,
Woman. And I was really kind of hell bent on exceeding the limitations of the female form.
mm,
I wanted, I even in spiritual practice, I was raised Catholic, and I resented terribly the fact that women weren't included in the rituals. And in sixth grade, I went to the Monsignor of our parish, and I insisted that there be some sort of celebration of the feminine. And it took me a year, but by seventh grade, I led and created a ritual to, the Virgin Mary for May, and it had never ever been done. And I think, well, myself, my mother kept my hair very, very short because I was such a mess all the time, and it was very fine, and so it was always very short like a boy. And this little bright freckled pixie going up to the Monsignor and going, we have to have a special thing for the feminine, you know. and
okay.
it took me months of badgering the Monsignor, but finally we got it. And so I just always sort of resisted the limitations that were put on. And I, when I first matured, I was very flat chested. I grew tall and very flat chested, and it was difficult because all of my girlfriends were wearing bras and things like that, and I had no reason to. And I was almost 15 and still flat chested, and then in August of one year, I put on 20 pounds, lost 10, and started school at a D cup. And I didn't know who I was because I was entering high school and nobody knew me from before. Well, a very small group of people knew me from junior high. And before that, they all thought I was wearing falsies. And all these people who just met me thought I was just this, sort of, curvaceous, va-va-voom kind of gal with, and I strutted around in hot pants and everything that displayed this, but I felt like a man
So did you
inside.
want it to be? Did you want it to be a boy? Well, did that ever cross your mind? Like,
Uh,
I don't want to be a girl. I really rather be a boy.
yeah, one of my girlfriends was raped when we were 16. I was supposed to be with her. We were supposed to walk from school, high school, to our girlfriend's house, and she was delayed. And we had an argument because I didn't want to walk without her, and she insisted that I go ahead. And she got kidnapped and raped. Um, and I just was outraged because I felt like a female lives her entire life being vulnerable to the physical prowess, because in my sort of tussling with my brothers, for example, although they were twins a year older, one was smaller than I was physically, weighed less than I was, and he still could wrestle me down to the ground. Just because he was a boy, he had more strength, and I resented that. I resented the body, being in the body of a female. I wanted to be in the body of a male, and so I think that flavored a lot for me as I went on. I became a director, and I became a comedian, and I became an acrobat and athlete, all in a very masculine kind of way, and and I never perceived myself as feminine or graceful or sensuous or anything like that. Although my comedy characters were very va-va-voom. I made the most of my bust, and as an actress, I played all sorts of, sensual, erotic Ditsy Dollies and things like that. But to me, anything that was female about me was a facade that I didn't relate with. And as my spiritual awakening grew through the years, I came to realize that I was not actually in rebellion against being in a female body. I was in rebellion against being in a human body.
Interesting. So I don't know if you can share maybe some of the stunts that you did and for whom you did it for, Can you do that? Are you allowed to do
Sure.
that? Or
Absolutely, absolutely.
I
So
would love to hear some.
let me begin just mentioning some of the films that
Hmm.
I worked on, or TV shows. I
Sure.
worked on Splash,
Hmm.
Ghostbusters, Money
Wow.
Pit, Highlander, Crocodile Dundee,
Hmm.
FX, Married
Hmm.
to the Mob, World According to the Garp. Did I mention Ghostbusters?
Yes, you did.
Yes, I
Yeah, I've
did.
seen them all so far.
Yeah, yeah. And I did various soap operas like Edge of Night and As the World Turns and Guiding Light, One Life to Live, things like that. And
Mhm.
I did a little cult film called Barry Gordy's The Last Dragon, which is a very special film that has inspired thousands of people across multi ethnicities, as it was sort of a Motown meets the Karate Kid,
Uh,
with an extraordinary Motown soundtrack and an incredible cast of great actors mixed with real martial artists and starring two people who never acted before. And one was Vanity, who was Prince's paramour for a while, and we lost her about a year ago. Just a
well, but
few.
we're always acting, Lisa.
Yeah.
I mean, even this right now, we are in our own movies.
Yes. Yes. The movie of our life. And so some of the great people that I worked for, that I doubled for, would include Cher and Madonna and Meryl Streep,
Wow.
Kelly Kelly McGillis, bunch of people like that, and some of the great actors that I worked with, a multitude of people such as Mandy Patinkin and Jeff Daniels and Robert Redford and Sean Connery and Nick Nolte. Oh, I also worked with Katharine Hepburn, Lucille Ball, Mary Tyler Moore, and some great directors like Ron Howard in Splash, and some great cinematographers, and working with Meryl Streep, unbelievable
Yeah,
experiences.
yeah, I
So
can imagine. No, I
yeah.
can't. I can't imagine because I would have to have your life. Yeah, it's amazing. That's amazing. That's really sounds delicious, actually.
And some of the things I did, it would include jumping off buildings, getting hit by cars, falling downstairs, going through plate glass windows, getting shot, stabbed, floated dead in freezing rivers, that sort of thing.
How about bicycles, motorbikes, cars,
Yeah.
taxis, stuff like that?
Yes, I love being behind the wheel. I'm a avid motorcyclist. Just on my own, I've traveled in all 50 of the United States and 9 Canadian provinces on motorcycles,
Wow.
and bought my first motorcycle with my first stunt. So that was great. And I have driven Formula Ford, stock cars, and motorcycles on 4 different racetracks. So I love, I'm a speed demon and precision demon. So I got to do a lot of work on commercials, like for Peugeot, Cadillac, Ford, Toyota, doing those fancy formation things, and
Mm.
all
Did,
those.
did you do anything for Citroën?
No,
Nobody knows that car around here.
I know the car, but I didn't do
Oh,
anything. But I've
okay.
crashed. I got to drive a Moto Guzzi into one of the federal buildings in New York, up the steps, into the hallway, through a glass door, and lay it down in the rotunda.
Great.
That was
What
really,
a
really
fantastic
fun.
experience. So what made you stop or get out of this profession?
I used a lot of what I generated from the stunts to invest in learning and becoming a master of a particular approach to actor training, which after my many years of actor training, I found this actually the very month after my first stunt, approach based on Michael Chekhov's perspective of how the human being operates, how the artist operates from a spiritual perspective. And his particular approach, he was a Russian performer, considered today still the greatest actor Russia ever produced, and the nephew of the great playwright Anton. And Michael himself had to escape from the Soviet because they were going to put him to death because he was training his actors at the Second Moscow Art Theater, of which he was the head at the time in the 1920s. To be so spiritually powerful that they were inducing spiritual frenzy in the audiences. And they were seeing images of things that didn't really exist, and he refused to alter what he was doing, so they were going to put him to death. He wound up coaching people like Marilyn Monroe, Yul Brynner, Gary Cooper, Anthony Quinn, Jack Nicholson, and Clint Eastwood, and Elizabeth Taylor, and Jimmy Dean, people like that in Hollywood. But he, by that time, had been so censored by the American publishers who wouldn't allow this spiritual work to be acknowledged, that he stopped even telling his students what was really going on. He taught them the external forms, how to create the effects and the power, the charisma and the radiance, but he stopped telling them actually what was really going on. So his work went underground, and I was part of the resurrection of the work, and have now brought it out to all over the world, because we can now talk about these things, or I'm going to talk about them no matter what. So while I'm doing the stunts provided me the money to study with everybody who knew anything about it. And while that happened, as my spiritual forces became stronger, I was getting strong messages: stop doing stunts. Not supposed to do it. And I had 3 friends who were killed within a 4-month period in various ways, and involved with stunts. And I knew I was supposed to quit, and I just refused. I kept getting sucked into the money, and oh, Lisa, you're so amazing, and there is quite a thrill when you leap tall buildings. That's pretty amazing. And so I did love the scientific and athletic prowess of it. The psychological management of fear, I loved managing that, but I knew I was supposed to stop, and I didn't, and I kept going until I crashed into a cliff. A rope slipped, and I severely injured my back, and as I dangled back and forth between 2 sides of a cliff wall, and it destabilized my lower vertebra. Went undiagnosed for a year, and I was a complete invalid from being Superman. Suddenly I couldn't walk, and had to I almost got arrested trying to get myself properly diagnosed. Went to a 3rd orthopedic specialist and refused to leave his office until he acknowledged there was an actual problem. And they brought in a security guard who was about 6'3", 300 pounds, and I told him he better get 2 more like him, because that's what it was going to take to get me out of this office.
Do you know who you're talking to?
Exactly. And finally, after 6 hours, the doctor was like, okay, I want to go home. Okay, I'll do this. I'm going to take new x-rays. I'm going to have you bend over and arch as we take the x-rays. And each time prior to that, they would lay me out perfectly on the table. And what they discovered was, as soon as I bend, curve, twist, lift, anything like that, the vertebrae just crushing the spinal cord and the nerves. They're sliding back and forth. And when I lay down on a proper table, it lines up perfectly, which is why they kept saying there was nothing wrong, because all the films looked perfect. But the moment and they were like, okay, you have a permanent disability here. It took about 3 more years for the state of California to declare it a 46% permanent loss of use of my back. And all 3 different surgeons that I saw said, don't do surgery until you can't function. and get a lifetime settlement, because this is going to be a lot of problem. And that injury obviously gave me a deep reckoning. A new person had to be born, a person who had a whole new identity, because I was no longer anything. I was just a crippled person, and who was in constant and chronic pain, and who the doctors basically made clear a surgery at that time couldn't promise relief from the pain or from the condition, and was too dangerous, could have led to complete paralysis. So it set me on a path to find how I could function, how I could understand what really controlled my pain, how to create a strength and a core to psycho-spiritually keep my alignment and diminish the process. And it was an era when, if you felt like it, you could pay $15 and go see with 25 other people this unknown doctor talking at the UCLA extension. What was that Indian doctor guy who, what was his name? I guess something like Deepak Chopra, right? So it was an era when nobody knew who Deepak Chopra was. And I sort of glommed onto that level of understanding and began working with the quantum, the metaphysics, and hands-on modalities, all sorts of different things to come to an understanding of how to function. And all that began to explain why Michael Chekhov's acting technique was so extraordinary and powerful. And I noticed that when I was teaching...
Can you shed a little more light? I'm really curious about Michael Chekhov's work in terms of the spirituality. Can you shed a little more light on that, if you would?
Yeah, his fundamental premise, there's two fundamental premises. The central one is that each of us has a higher being, a higher ego. And this higher ego is founded and anchored purely in love. And
that's funny. We were talking about that before the show.
Yeah. And his image is that in this, he describes in his Russian work, he stopped speaking of this image when he started teaching in English in 1935. But prior to that, he describes the Earth as outside its ozone layer, a sphere of images exists. And in this sphere are all images of everything, the historical people, the future story characters, all the creative and artistic images, all the archetypes exist in this sphere. And what the artist, any artist does, and even any scientist, anybody, we don't actually create. We create we don't create the thing. We create a pathway for the image to reveal itself through us. And so all these images, like Hamlet, already exists. So the actor doesn't have to create Hamlet, or Shakespeare doesn't create Hamlet. We all just tap into this sphere, and we ultimately, it's like having an iCloud, a super iCloud, that all we need to do is download the image, and we're like the hardware that reveals the image. We don't have to do any of the creation. It's there. The music is in the sphere. The artwork is already in the sculpture. And all the artist does is reveal what is there through their own creative individuality, which is why your Hamlet and my Hamlet will be very different, and yet they both are sourced from the archetypal image. So he, with that, he looked at, and he says when people are in peak performances, of course he's not using this language, but when we're in the, he says, states of happiness, when we're happy on the stage, all these energy patterns are aligning in perfect flow, and you have a cessation of time and space. So in the peak moment, there is no time and space. And
I experience it on my shows all the time.
That's right. And we don't
There's no
even,
time and space.
yeah, our brain scientifically drop down, I think below, like, our short-term memory, it drops down so much during those peak states that we're more inclined to remember a dream than what we actually do in the peak moment. We rely on others to reflect back to us the actual doings. What we retain the experience of is the energetic aha of it. And even in reflecting, if you reflect on some of these moments years past, once again that same energetic aha restores itself. And this is a balancing, it's a healing, it heightens the immune system. And in that harmonic attunement, we do, in that mirror neuron kind of thing, we trigger that state in ourselves, and it happens in our audiences at the same time. And so when we're completely in this state of the individual creativity, where we've stepped away and allowed that higher force to travel through us and radiate out, the sense of oneness becomes instantly palpable for everyone around, and deeply memorable. So that was his approach, and that we could, if we looked at what kind of energy patterns are present in peak performances, we could train ourselves to replicate those particular patterns on command.
And that's how it becomes so believable.
Yeah.
That's how they win Academy Awards.
That's it. And for him, he believes that the true act of transformation, that why are actors carved into the walls of the caves? Why is this ritual of the performer and the audience, the shaman and the tribe, so enduring that it predates and will outlive almost every other profession that exists? Because that sense of community is so important. The art of storytelling is so important, bringing us together. And the matter of talent, a question of talent, is anchored in the quantity of your love. How much love you bear for this act is the source of your talent.
Very fascinating. So let's, we coming close to the end of the show here, but I want to focus a little bit on the books, because you're an author as well. So you have written this Falling for the Stars, and then you have a new book that I want to mention. But let's talk about the Falling for the Stars. What is that book about, and how can people get it?
Yeah, it's great. I have a copy of the book here, and it's about 40-some chapters about my life and career as a stunt woman. It's got lots of photos in it. Some, pictures, like Cher sent an autographed picture of us together, which was really great. Some really fun stuff. I've got a crossword puzzle, because my mom loves crossword puzzles, and I wasn't sure at 94 whether she'd read the book unless I had a crossword puzzle to make her read it.
Whatever it takes.
Yeah, and my dad, may he rest in peace, was a big English fan, so I have a dictionary in here for film terms, which, Steve, you might enjoy, especially in your future as a filmmaker, of who everybody is on the set and stuff like that. And there's little life lessons all the way throughout, and I think hopefully the deeper lesson about how I was a nervous, fearful, aspiring actress who used her physical skill to rise to the top of the wrong profession, paid a great price in order to get to a happier, healthier life. So that's sort of the big arc. And there's very, very few stories written about stunt women or by stunt women. And it reveals a lot of the challenges that we face in the industry, and how even today you will frequently not see stunt women with proper film credits and things like that. And there are still men who are putting wigs on and doubling women. And very hard to be in the industry without sleeping with the man, and there are lots of challenges. So I'm hoping also to bring a little bit of awareness to that aspect. So it's available on Amazon.com, where it was.
Yeah,
a
I
bestseller.
want to have another show with you where we talk about your sex life through these 10 years.
Okay, that's great. I got lots to say about that.
We'll have tons more viewers, I promise.
Oh, yes, there you go. And
Okay.
there
Go
are
ahead.
some,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
there are some really fun pictures in here that I think folks will enjoy, and there are on my website, which is lisadalton.com. If you sign up on the mailing list, you can get a free chapter. You can download the dictionary. You can also, if you email me at lisa@lisadalton.com, I'll send you a special link to the color photos that are in the book, which is really fun. And then my new book, coming out soon, February 21st, is called Murder of Talent: How Pop Culture's Killing It. And I hope the title suggests my message. To some extent, it's my more details after I got injured from my stunt, which I talk about here. I did make a full living as an actress. I was unemployable, technically unemployable, but I did make a living as an actress, which allowed me to do all the travels and everything that I did. But what I experienced under the guise of actor training, and the abuse and the horrors that actors are led through, is rampant. And we, as a society, we get angry when celebrities do stupid things. And yet, how are we responsible as society? I mean, we're the ones who are watching those sort of ego-driven personality tracking shows called reality, which have nothing to do with reality at all.
In fact, every word that they say is given to them.
Yes. I mean, those characters are.
This is a reality show. What we're doing, you and I, right now, because we didn't discuss any of this. This is being generated as we go.
Exactly, and what we do by reading these trashy magazines and by harassing Brad and Jen and Angelina, how are these people supposed to be gracefully up upon the pedestal where we deify them and then we vilify and crucify them in the next second? And nobody's training anybody to be able to hold that power of the sense of self. Who is Prince when he walks off that stage and winds up alone in some strange hotel room? Who is he then? We don't train people to hold the stage of celebrity. And then we harass our children, or we take like big video. Oh, look, my child is pumpkin when they're 5. We're excited. But when your son decides to be an actor when he's 16, oh my God, he must be gay. Oh my God, he's going to live a life as a disaster. I'm not going to pay $100,000 for my child to go to Yale drama. Why would I do that? As if the profession itself is a shame. We've been cast as whores and everything for millennia and disrespected. So many people's talent is crushed before they ever get launched, and it turns inside and they live very unhappy lives that take a huge toll on society. They
I can sense your passion about this. Yeah. No wonder you wrote a book.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's fantastic. So to be continued,
great.
because I don't think we can cover all this stuff that we wanted to talk about in a half hour. So we welcome you back. And you've been fantastic. You are very intriguing, very interesting, very memorable. I'm going to remember you. I'm not going to forget you. The dog got his dime in. Okay, great. So I had a lot of fun. Thank you for sharing yourself and your wisdom. And hopefully we see you back on the network soon.
Thank you, Steve, so much. You're a wonderful, amazing, conscious guy.
Oh,
Appreciate all
wow.
your work. All your
Yeah.
work is great.
Thank you. Yeah, that's to be continued as well. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a wonderful evening. We'll be back on the network tomorrow, same time, same place, 7 o'clock Mountain, 9 p.m. Eastern. See you guys then. Keep watching us on YouTube. Keep watching us on YouTube Red. And who knows where this ends up. I don't really care anymore. But I would like to have all of our numbers to get larger because I just do. I have a request. Keep watching. Thank you, Lisa. Loving Dalton. Have a great evening.
Thank you, Steve.
Good night, everybody.